I'll call the regular City Council meeting for October 13th, 2014 to order. The first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll start up by, for the record, we do have a quorum of the council, so we'll proceed with the meeting. Ed, do you want to talk? There's a revised agenda.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I don't believe there are any changes other than we have a business in town, Enke Brewing, which is applying for a grant through the Minnesota Department of Agriculture, and it will be they're planning to expand their operation, and in expansion they'll be adding some new equipment and amenities to the facility. They'll also be doubling the size of their employees. So they are asking for a resolution of support for their application to the State Agricultural Department. So we have on your desk tonight a resolution to that effect.
And we'll cover that in 10B, it looks like.
Okay, that's all.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve the amended agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We've approved the amended agenda. Next item is the open forum. It's an opportunity for citizens to address the council on subjects or topics not on the current agenda. If anybody would like to address the council, would you please step forward and state your name and address? Seeing none, we'll go to the visitors' presentation. Pat, Dr. Devine?
Thank you, Mayor Tom, council members. Thanks for having us here tonight. Pat Devine, Superintendent of Waconia Schools, ISD 110. Came here tonight to talk a little bit about the referendum that we have up as part of the bond referendum for the election on November 4th. Wanted to make sure that people have a chance to know what this is all about and have the information in front of them as far as the facts of what we're asking for. And start out the presentation a little bit of the first page of the presentation. Since I've been at the school district, I've been kind of asking people to think about who we are as a school district. And it's not just Waconia Public Schools, but it's ISD 110. And 110 means 110. There's one entire group of organizations, communities, and neighborhoods that are part of our district. And we serve quite a few different communities, and part of it, we're fortunate enough to have part of Victoria as our school district. So we're real pleased to have Victoria in our school district, and that they are part of our District 110. The District 110 has been known for excellence for a long time in our school district. And I knew that coming in. That's kind of why I chose to apply there, because I knew that District 110 did stand for schools of excellence. They're high performing in test scores, they're high performing activities, academics, they're high performing in their fine arts programs. They're very involved with participating in many youth programs. We have our community ed programs very strong, our enrichment programs are strong. Our Green Ribbon School District Sustainability Award is one of 9 in the nation, so we're very proud of that, and proud of our award-winning garden. And our finances, we stay fiscally responsible, and we get awards each year for the last 3 years for our finance. So school district's very sound, very solid, a school of excellence, and we're proud of that. We do have a problem though. It's overcrowded. As we see in the caption, this is what our students and our teachers feel every year. Class, because of our school's enormous growth, we'll be welcoming some new students today. Each year we grow, and we keep growing, and we keep growing, and part of it, families want to live in this area, and that's what happens is our schools grow then. As you look at our growth in the last 10 years, we've grown 1,256 students, and that is about the average growth we see every year, about 120 to 130 students. Even in the down years when the economics went down for a few years, our growth was still around 80 to 85 students a year, so we kept growing. So in 10 years, we've grown 1256, which overcrowds our buildings. As you can see in the presentation here, that at the beginning of this year, we were up 52 students in our K-4 buildings, which put our buildings over capacity by 146 students. Our 5 through 8 building, Clearwater, was up 51 students from last year, which puts our capacity over by 120 students. And then our high school building, our 912 building, is up 11 from last year, which puts us over capacity by 30 students. So every facility we have is over capacity. We're putting more students in than we can handle, really. I mean, it's starting to just cram them into small spaces, and so we need to do something. What's the solution? It's a tax neutral $75 million bond referendum. Vote is November 4th. Property taxes will remain level by refinancing our existing obligation. I'll explain that a little bit later. But homeowners will not see an increase to their annual voter-approved school levy for facility tax. That's important to our board. They want to make sure the taxes stay level for people's budget. By doing that, it's a fiscally respectful solution for our taxpayers. It also addresses our overcrowding for all grade levels, and it benefits our school district all around. As we look at what's happening, we're moving things around. It's a good thing. We're moving our high school to the middle school. The reason for that switch is the current high school was added on to one time, and now there's wetlands all around. You really can't add on to the high school anymore. So if we want a high school campus, we have to look somewhere else, and Clearwater Middle School had room to add on to it and can add on to even in future years, even beyond this bond. So that building is set to be a high school if we wanted to turn into. So that's why this referendum switches the middle school, high school around. The other thing it does is when you move a 6th through 8th grade to the current high school, you're putting 3 grades in a 4-grade building. That allows for growth in that age frame, the 6th through 8th grade. And then the current middle school has 5th grade in it. We would move the 5th grade to the elementaries, and we'd add one more elementary so that we can handle the growth of our K-5 population. So we're handling the growth K-5, 6, 8, and 9, 12 by this proposal. We're also taking care of our early childhood program. Right now they're in the industrial park area, which is not a good area to have little kids out playing and trucks driving by and so on. So that will be a nice spot for them. And then if those that have ever dropped off their child in Clearwater High School in the morning or pick them up in the afternoon, there's only one way in and one way out, and it takes a long time. I have parents tell me it takes them an extra 15 minutes in the morning just to drop off their child. We will have a new access off of Highway 5, so we'll have 2 different accesses to that property. As we move on to the what is new in this plan was a new elementary, which is closer to Victoria, and we'll see that here in a little bit. We have several new fields, courts, and large auditorium. We ask for any neighbor we can find for green space right now, or our youth program space, because we are just overgrowing. And I know we've asked Victoria to help us out, and they have in the past with some of our youth programs. So we'll continue that until we have enough facilities, and hopefully this bond will help with that. One of the things that happened about 6 months ago, or I think now it's about 8 months ago, they did a study on our youth programs and what they need for foot traffic, and it showed that we needed 8 to 10 soccer, lacrosse / football fields just for all of our youth programs and our kids to have space so that they can accommodate that. So that's part of the reason we see the fields in this proposal. The secured entryway to all schools, right now we have at least 2 of our schools that you can walk in and pretty much walk down the hallway without going by the office, and you can kind of dodge the office. When we're done with this proposal, every building will have a secured entryway where you'll have to go through the office to get into school during the school day. So we're glad to have that put in place. And then lastly is we're upgrading our ventilation system, our HVAC system in Bayview and Southview Elementaries. They both are put in 1960s, so they need a little renovation, updating. So this was what May Elementary might look like. We have not hired our construction engineer or our architect yet. We'll see if this passes. If it does pass, then we'll go out and we'll do a RFP and get the bids for who we get for an architect, and then construction engineer. But this is a drawing of what an elementary might be on the top. The bottom is what the high school would look like as it turns into a middle school. That little notch out in the front left down there is with glass in it. That's the office area that you'd have to walk through to get into the building. Go ahead and move to the next one. This is the site for the elementary. I'm going to walk over here a little bit. As you look at this is Target down the bottom. This is that quick trip up here, Highway 5 there. This is, so down Target, this is called Airport Road. There's kind of a gravel road that goes here. As you're on Highway 5, I think there's a pump station right on about that area. As you look at that, that really takes care of our growth problems. If you want to go to the next one. Our growth is really happening out here at Lake Ridge development. You have so Victoria, this west side of Victoria is really getting big. The Minnetrista and the St. Bonnie area is really developing more, and this area around Target is really developing. So this kind of centers every piece that you can get to. And as you drive from Victoria to the Waconia, east side of Waconia, there's not a lot of sites between here and there. That's one probably is the best central site for all three areas. The other thing that was really nice about this property is the last time they went out for property when they're looking at a high school building, the property was priced at $50,000 an acre. This is priced at $20,000 an acre. So getting a little better price on it, and it's a location that will really help with all the growth areas. So that third elementary would take care of the growth in K-5. The growth in 6-8, we put those 3 grades into a 4-grade building in the high school complex. Really not a lot of walls to knock down doing that. All the classrooms are pretty much just exactly what we need for the middle school. So really they just need to move in. The blue, the green, and the orange kind of keeps our grade levels separate. We have that right now. We call it the house concept. And so we'll keep those separate in the building so they're not really interacting through the grade levels. The light purple is what we call the encore classes, our wood shops, our art, our STEM labs, FACS classes. So that'll kind of be centrally located. The couple things with the new the middle school going into high school, the current middle school has what they call a cafetorium for concerts, and it's really awkward to go visit a concert in because they shift parents in by grade level. Okay, the 6th grader's done, now you have to leave. 7th grade parents come in and watch the 7th graders because it's so small. And the auditorium here will seat 400, so we should be able to do concerts a little better at this site for a middle school. The entryway you can see on the upper right, that's that knockout where they'll have, so you have to walk through there to get into the building. And then the upper left is a light green. That is where that early enrichment center for the little kids programs that we have, their early childhood programs. They have their own drop-off site, which would be nice because then they can come and go during the day because that's not, sometimes it's half-day programming. And then they'll have their own playground on the outside. They also have the ability to have a playground inside both a small gym area and a playground because this is the industrial arts part of the high school, so there's some high ceilings. So we should be able to renovate that and turn that into a nice youth program for our early enrichment center. So that takes care of the 6-8 population. One other thing I'd say is our edible classroom. We're proud of that garden that we have, and our students learn how to work with that, so it's kind of a farm to school project. That will get moved to this site because our middle school works with that quite a bit. But that takes care of our 6th through 8th grade population. And then we move to the high school, and some say, how can Clearwater ever look like a high school, and how can you have a nice high school with Clearwater building? Well, this would be Clearwater building turned into a high school. The left is the auditorium that we put in, 800 to 1,000 seat auditorium. The office area would be pushed out again with that glass space in front, and you'd have to walk through the office area to get in after the day starts. The bottom center picture is actually the back of the school. Those towers that you have in that complex would be able to be pushed out and added classrooms on each one of them. And then we'd put in a competition gym and a student entrance in the back and an activity entrance in the back. That allows for the parking during the day for all the students, but in the evening for all the parking for all the events that you might have. And there's a better picture probably in the next one than if we go. So this would be our campus, and we talked about that Highway 5 entrance. So this is Highway 5. This is the current high school, which is turned into the middle school. There's Clearwater. Right now, everybody goes down that community way. Now we'll have this access right here. There's 10 acres here that we bought to get that access, and that price was at $39,000 an acre. We bought 60 acres for the fields and for the parking lot, and that is at $32,000 an acre, so all underneath the price of what we're looking at before. This will allow our students to get in there in the morning for our high school students. Be nice access for activities. We have activities in the evening. The gray is our current building. Safari is in that building, Safari Island. That will continue with that same relationship. The brown is the additions that we can see in the auditorium and so on. You also see tennis courts over on this side. We don't have that for tennis courts in the community, so that will be something that we'll be able to add. The pond there is there to, on the new acreage, would be put in to make sure that we can collect the water that comes off the runoff, and then we would irrigate our fields with that. If you want to go on to the, so this is what the floor plan of the building would look like. And the one thing I guess I like looking at is the blue and the yellows, because this is all your towers. If you look, they almost double every time you go out. They almost double the number of classrooms we have in each one of those towers, both upstairs and downstairs. This is a two-story complex. So as you double your classroom size, you're going to be able to put in science rooms that are up to date for high school and can handle the kind of pre-engineering science type classrooms that you need. And then we also have a new industrial tech area in that area, and that will take care of, again, your vocational students, and we'll upgrade your programming there, so that's the vocational students for what they need for the modern day. Main entry, we bumped out. Administration, you have to walk through to get into the building. This is that auditorium we talked about. That will be nice for our facility to have that. We have a great fine arts program. The practice rooms there. Up above, in the upper left, is a competition gym with a wrestling room off to the side. We have the cafeteria there that will be large enough. We're building this for at least 1,600 to 2,000 students, and we know we might even have to go beyond that someday. Those towers can keep adding on. So that orange area we want to make big enough to handle a large enough population for our students as they grow. The cafeteria that's up there in Clearwater right now is right up in this area. That will be all leveled off and make a gymnastic area out of it, and then also put a weight room in there. So that alone will take a lot of pressure off the Safari, so we're not putting quite as many students in the day into the Safari complex. But that gives you kind of a footprint of what the high school could look like if this was to go through. And then we look at the price. So we look at the price, it breaks down like this. The last 2 times ago they went out for property, and my understanding, most of the voters said, you know what, we know you're going for property, but really you're going for a new high school, and that high school is going to be somewhere between $90 to $110 million. And the board listened to that, and they said, okay, how can we do this differently? They came up with this decision to renovate one of our current buildings and add on to it at a price of $34 million. So about a third the cost, we're going to get a high school complex. The middle school moving into high school, like I said, not a lot of walls being knocked down there. So that's going to only cost $2 million to get that entryway, and some of the other walls we need to take care of inside there. The elementary site, the elementary building is, we have 19.9, so almost $20 million for the elementary. And that's for 600 students. We could expand it to 800 if need be. We will look at that when the bids come in. We'll also look at that down the road if we grow too fast. The elementary is cited to be open in 2016, and the switch of the high school, middle school would be 2017. So that's the timing on those. The rest of the cost there is the early childhood program at about $200,000. Deferred maintenance, that's for those upgrading our HVAC systems in the 2 elementaries, and also for a roof on Clearwater. Plus there'll be some cushion in there in case the bids don't come in where we want them. So we'll have a little room to work with. The security upgrades is $1.2 million. The athletic fields expansion is $7.2 million, and that includes one turf field, and that right now is slated to go into the Bayview Stadium that they have a lot of traffic on right now. Refinancing existing buildings is $2 million. That's our current district office. Right now, we lease levy tax our voters on that, and that it's a higher tax to lease levy than it would be for us to buy it outright and tax you over the 24 years here. The total cost, or then the land, I told you the breakdown of those prices, that all adds up to $3 million, and then the total price is $75 million. $75 million, as we look into that, we keep saying tax neutral, and people go, well, how can you say tax neutral? You know, you're throwing $75 million of tax toward us. And that's true. It's $75 million on the long range plan. But it's like refinancing your house and keeping your payment the same, and you extend a few more years. We're extending it to 24 years. Our normal bonds is usually about 20 years. We extended it to 24 years. And this was done because the board really wanted to make sure there was no impact on a yearly basis of your yearly tax payment. They didn't want to have an impact on the taxpayers. So they asked the tax auditor to look at our current property and say, how many years would we have to go out if we want to stay between, at that point it was 72 and 76 million is the cost they knew that they had to have, because they built the projects first, found out what they cost, then went out and found out what the tax neutral would look like. And tax neutral came out at 75 million for 24 years. As you look at this chart, the purple or the blue is actually existing debt, and the red is the new debt. You know, some might look at that and say, well, you know, if we didn't have that new debt, I know I'd go down a lot. Well, yes and no. We still have overcrowding. We don't know what to do with these students as they come, so we would probably have to go to those portables, and then we lease levy, and then that's a worse situation because we're taxing people on something that we'll just get rid of later, and that's no good for anybody. So there's kind of a yes and no on that one, because I don't think we're going to slow the growth down. The growth is coming our way. So it's a nice option to say, let's keep your tax payment the same. And then the other thing is, you extend it 24 years, all those new property owners are going to help pay that red part off. So that's going to help us down the long run. We did ask the tax auditor to look at residential, commercial, agricultural, homestead, and non-homestead, and do this 75 million over 24 years and see what the tax impact was. And for every group and every classification, it was $0 for their impact. So we felt good about that. The problem is, when you look at the ballot, you're going to see by voting yes on this ballot, you're voting for an increase to your taxes. That's a true statement, because it's a long-term debt. As you push that 75 million over 24 years, you are increasing your taxes. But your yearly annual payment will stay the same. And that was really something that was important to our school board, that we kept the price same all the way across through yearly payments. But they will see this, those that vote will see this on their, and if they haven't listened to this presentation or read anything, they're going to go in there and say, oh, I guess this is an increase for tax, I don't want that. So I guess we would need to make sure people understand that that's not their yearly tax. And if you can help spread the word, that's great. We will have this mailer goes out and explains it. This will be in people's mailbox in the next week, and they should be able to see that. Anybody's in our school district will get one of those, so that should help explain a little bit. So what's this do for our program educational benefits? It reduces our overcrowding. We know that that's our biggest problem. It provides for a safer environment. It provides for space for future growth. This allows us to grow for at least 10 years, we figure, is our projection to handle the growth. Our youth programs, they have more fields and courts. We know that will help for that future growth problems. Additional larger auditorium. We know our fine arts program kids love being a part of that, so this allows them to be involved with that. And an upgrade to our facilities will enhance for our current and future programs. What's it do for the community? That auditorium won't just be for our school, it'll be for our community. If somebody wants to rent that out on the weekend and put a concert on and charge tickets and have some local Minneapolis band or somewhere beyond Chicago band or group or something wants to come out, they can do that. You know, they can use our facilities and rent it and charge their tickets. So it'll bring culture to our community. Recreational and educational facilities both are going to be enhanced, so that'll help the adults, learners that want to be a part of recreational groups or academic groups. We know that great schools are good for local economy and for property values, and invest in our children for future generations, because we know that strong schools do make a strong community. So we want to provide the best for the best. Like I said before, we know that this is a great school district. ISD 110 has done really well, and we want to continue doing well. And so we want to make sure that it provides for our students, our staff, our parents, our community, and all of 110. Here's some of the pictures again. The elementary site would be something like that. That's where the high school turns into a middle school, would be this one. The next one, that's the back side of the Clearwater building that turns into the high school, and that'd be the high school parking. And this is the front of the high school. So as we look at this, we know that great schools give you a great community. This is a tax neutral solution on your yearly taxes. It's benefits all ages. Every group is being affected here. And I've been told by many, this is probably about my 40th presentation, that this one just makes sense. And hopefully you feel the same way. So that's what I have to present for you today. Is there some questions?
Questions from council? Well, Pat, we wish you best success. I mean, what you do is important to a fairly significant segment of our population, so.
Yeah, that's the great partnership we have with Victoria. Is it's exciting to have students living in the community of Victoria come to our school district. So it is important that we have this relationship.
Well, thank you for coming.
Yeah.
And good luck on the 4th.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. I'm going to run. I stick around, but we have our own board meeting tonight. So thank you all. Look forward to the next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One more presentation, Bob?
Thank you. Mayor O'Connor and City Council and staff, thank you for having me. I just want to take a few minutes tonight as we're celebrating the opening of the new trail segment from the Lake Minnetonka Regional Trail over to the Arboretum to share a little bit about a couple things. One being the vision that we have for a linking trail to connect Victoria and Chaska. And the second, to tell you a little bit about the rapid growth of trail usage in the Metropolitan Council. I serve as sort of the chair and convener of an ad hoc committee of people between Victoria and Carver County and Chaska, both staff and elected officials and citizens, that deal with this vision of creating this linking trail. And so if you would, let me just say that first of all, I think working with Victoria is an exciting thing. You all have a wonderful picture of an outdoor living space of lakes and parks, and I would like to say trails, that is your signature. You've recently improved the regional trail. You've really just today cut the ribbon on the Rolling Acre Trail. You've got lots of linking trails, highly used parks. But I think one of the things that's missing and that I'd like to get your enthusiasm for is a link between the two cities of Chaska and Victoria, but perhaps even more importantly, a link between two regional trails. And we'll talk about that in a moment. Who rides bicycles? Okay. So we've got some bikers here that hopefully will love this idea. We've got the Lake Minnetonka Regional Trail that comes all the way up to Victoria. We have, at some point in time, maybe in 20 years, we will complete the regional trail that goes up through many of your neighborhoods that are being developed over the coming years. And we will have an official regional trail. But in the meantime, we have an opportunity to tie these two together for the people of today. And that's I think, the exciting vision that we have been working on for several years. The vision is basically that we complete this trail And there may be more than one way to do it. But linking the trails, providing local residents and visitors an enjoyable destination and scenic trail, bringing the benefits of health to our citizens, and importantly, I think, bringing to the businesses and to the community more people from outside, tourists, coming in to enjoy our towns, to buy our food and drink, to sleep perhaps overnight, and then to go back to the Twin Cities the next day. So what's going on in trails? Well, the Met Council every year does an audit. And as you can see in the first block there, over the last 10 years, the increase in trail usage has grown 89%. There's a lot more. If you're out biking around, if you ride the Dakota Rail Trail or any of these trails, you see a lot of people biking. The Lake Minnetonka Regional Trail from Hopkins to Victoria, they estimate by an auditing process an increase in visits of 87% over the last 10 years. The trail down in the river bluffs has not been connected before. The trail stopped and there was no destination into Chaska. The growth in that trail has really not grown very much. But I think there are some exciting things happening. And I want to just use Lanesboro as an example of what I think can be. If you've been to Lanesboro or if you've been to the Cannon River area or some of the other places, you see people coming as a destination. And Lanesboro has benefited significantly in tourism over the years at a rate of about $1.5 million a year. So that's the vision. We can be from Hopkins to Victoria to Chaska and back, a weekend destination. And that's the exciting picture, which I hope you can feel as well. Please. We've had a lot of people involved, and some of these people are now current, but basically your former mayor, Mary Hirschberger Thune, Holly, Ann, myself, Marty Walsh, began with the vision that we could make this happen as we picked off some of the areas that needed to be meshed to put together a linking trail now. And so where are we? Let's go back one. No, that's fine. Let's go forward. This year, we opened up an absolutely critical link in the trail segment. It was only a quarter of a mile, but it was an important piece that was never finished on the trail. And so people, they would ride down the trail from Eden Prairie, and then they would sort of fall off a cliff onto the highway. Well, that's been fixed, and we were able to get grants for that with the help of the county, just as they provided money to help improve the trail right up here. And now we have just completed that section up the top from the apple farm and then over to the Arboretum. So what's left for us, with your mouse if you would please, is just bring the mouse right down this line where you are. The section between Highway 5 and 86 is the one link that we need to complete to make this all work. Let's go to the next piece. Now, I know that you have a plan to work on finishing trails and to adding trails in an area where they don't exist today. And I think that's marvelous. And that will make the neighborhoods more easily accessible between neighborhoods and what we have today. But I would encourage you to consider putting the trail down the east side of Bavaria. And I'll tell you why. Because if we come to the west side and then come down, we're going to have to cross diagonally from where the Apple Farm Trail is today on the east side. You're going to have to come across Rolling Acre Road and then across Highway 5, then down the west side of Bavaria and then you're going to have to cross over again back from west to east. It may be the most cost-effective design, but I don't think it would be the safest, nor in the long range the best design. I think the best design would be to continue the trail lineage, if you will, from the east side where it exists today and down and marry to the east side trail on Bavaria that connects to Chaska. So I'm encouraging you to spend a little more money, but to make a long-term great investment, I think, for all concerned. Please. And here, I think, is where you all can help and come in. So what I'm inviting is for you to embrace the idea that a Victoria-Chaska linking trail makes good sense for your citizens, makes good sense for your taxpayers, makes great sense for your businesses, that we should put together an effort to complete this trail by 2017, and then to embrace it with the business communities and input into regional marketing to create signage which makes a unique and promotable set of signs, such as Hopkins has done with their signage of their trail signs. And to put signs into the city so that we have good motivating signage and wayfinding for people to find ice cream, hamburgers, wine, a place to stay overnight, and a place that will guide them wisely from one area to another. So, I don't want to take a lot of your time, but I want to congratulate you on the trail that you've just opened, for the involvement of staff, and Holly Kreft, who is no longer here, but who played a major role, along with Ann and the current administration, in moving us forward. And I appreciate that very much. And I invite you to buy the concept and help move us forward. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Questions? Well, we ought to thank you, Bob. You have, in no small way, played a role in getting what we opened, the grand opening tonight. That was in no small way due to your hard work.
Well, I look forward to standing here in a couple more years and saying, God, that was a great idea of ours. I'm really glad we did that. Let's cut another ribbon.
Just, have there been any preliminary estimates prepared as to what the cost might be for such a link, just that link from 5 to 86?
Let me refer that question to Ann, who may have a better answer of that than I might.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I think it was about 2 to 3 years ago, Kara actually had prepared a preliminary estimate, and it was about $440,000 at that time. So that was very, very preliminary. So.
You stand by that number, Kara?
I have to update.
Yeah, I think that's one of the, as you know, you mentioned that Holly left, and we've been without a planner or a community development director, and when that position is filled, hopefully will in the short run, that could be certainly that's going to be a priority. If I think we share your vision, it's just a matter of finding grant money to maybe see the whole process.
Right. Thank you. I talked to Tom Moe tonight, and when some years back, we went over to the Arboretum and talked with the Arboretum folks in the university about improving the area on the east side of Bavaria Road, adjacent to their property south of Highway 5. And when the construction was going on for the intersection with MnDOT, the county and the Arboretum, you folks, all worked to regrade a platform on the east side of Bavaria so that a trail could be put in without further expense in that process. So that was very much an effort designed to facilitate the building of this trail.
It sounds like it's well begun.
I look forward to coming back and congratulating you again. Thank you very much.
And keep up the pressure on us.
Okay. Good night. Thank you.
Next, we'll treat the consent agenda, where all items are approved with one motion unless anybody wishes to remove an item from the consent agenda. I'd like to remove the minutes of the September 22nd City Council meeting.
I would like to remove item 5B, the Public Works Facility Utility Extension Payment Request.
Nevin? Have a motion then to approve the amended consent agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We've approved the amended consent agenda. I removed the minutes of the September 22nd council meeting. If you go to the second full paragraph on page 4, make sure I got this right, page 4, second full paragraph, it reads now, Ms. Grinnell informed the council that the Recreation Center Fund levy is equal to last year's levy, and Recreation Center Fund levy is lower than last year's levy. There's a misprint there. Clearly what it should read is, Ms. Grinnell informed the council that the general fund levy is equal to last year's levy, and the Recreation Center Fund levy is lower than last year's levy. Now we're playing with words there. Ms. Recorder, do you have that? You got that? Okay. So I'll make a motion to approve the amended minutes of the meeting of September 22nd, 2014.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We've approved the amended meeting minutes. Tom?
Yes.
You had item 5B.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 5B is a payment request for extending utilities to the new Public Works facility. And I guess I wanted some clarification here. It's been reported that there was something like $60,000 worth of, I guess, special gift consideration to adjacent landowners to extend utilities to them. And I guess I don't remember seeing that anywhere. I'm wondering why we would do that and if that's in this number.
Councilmember Striegel, I don't specifically know what that might be. This is a specific line item in our budget
Okay.
that we've been tracking through the whole project. The costs to do this work have increased in the budget over time. The last time the council saw it was July 28th when we awarded the project, from where the line item was specifically when we first started.
So that's not correct then. My recollection was that utility extensions are traditionally paid for by the developer to the adjacent property line. Is that correct?
Correct.
And so in that concept, we have treated ourselves the same as any other developer
Correct.
in terms of we paid for getting utilities onto the property and then to the next adjacent line.
Correct.
Okay, so we can, okay. With that said, and the correction for the record, then I make a motion that we approve agenda statement number 14-185, authorizing payment in the amount of $147,145.34.
I'll second that. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We've approved item 5B. Now, there's still a couple of items left on the amended consent agenda. I'll make a motion to approve the remaining items on the amended consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We've approved the amended consent agenda. Finance, approve the October 13th, 2014 claims roster.
I'll make a motion to approve the claims roster for the Victoria City Council on October 13th, 2014, in the amount of $1,054,871.06.
Second.
There's a second. I'll point out, anybody who wants to go into the packet, there are several of the larger items that are listed in detail, so you don't have to go through the entire document to see where we're spending our big dollars. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We've approved the claims roster. 6B, the Tax Increment Finance District Reconciliation. Ed, you want to lead that off?
Well, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the city's auditor met with our finance manager, Kelly Grinnell, some time ago to discuss some interfund transfers and issues related to the reporting of the tax increment funds to the state, and raised some questions as to how that should be handled, and suggested some language and some transfers that could take place. It went before the Finance Committee in September. They recommended it to move forward, and I'll introduce Kelly. She can explain it in more detail.
Kelly?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Recently, the city started with a new auditing firm of Abdo Eck & Myers, and they completed our tax increment financing reports. Those reports are due to the state auditor by August 1st of each year. While they were working on those reports, they noticed that the amounts we were reporting to the state auditor did not match up with the city's fund balances, so our internal reports were not matching what was submitted to the state auditor. I met with Matt, he came out, and we went through each TIF fund to review the differences. And what we determined that most of the differences are due to non-TIF related revenues and expenditures that were being included in the TIF funds, but really should have been transferred out back in 2010 when the TIF reporting requirements changed. Up until 2010, the state auditor's reporting forms did allow for funds to have both TIF and non-TIF revenues in them. In 2010, the state auditor indicated that they wanted to have that eliminated from their reporting. So when the reports were prepared in 2010, those extra revenues and expenditures were taken out. And if you look at the reports that were submitted at that time, there is a line item that indicates prior year non-TIF related revenues and expenditures. So we were able to tie back to 2010 to see these differences and reconcile them. In talking to Mr. Voss from Abdo Eck & Myers, we talked about what we could do with the funds. There is an option, of course, to leave them in TIF and pay off TIF district obligations. We do have a TIF bond that's outstanding. We have an interfund loan for TIF. However, we have TIF revenues that are coming in that are pledged against those bonds. So it really doesn't make sense from a financial standpoint to pay them off with non-TIF revenues if we have TIF revenues coming in that include taxes that would normally go to the school district or the county. So it's our benefit to transfer these out to different funds and make uses of them. So in looking at the different TIF districts, and in the packet I color coordinated on both, on the agenda statement, the letter from the auditor, and then the city financial statement, so you could kind of follow where each transfer amount was going. For TIF District 1, we have a proposed transfer amount of $65,654. This amount, in speaking to Mr. Voss, he indicated we could transfer it to any fund we would like. So I am proposing the sewer fund, which is similar to TIF District 2. The amount in TIF District 2 is $131,460. And between the two, it's almost $200,000 that would be transferred to the sewer fund. As you know, the sewer fund is lower than we'd like it to be. We recently completed the Wasserman, or almost completed the Wasserman trunk utility project. We did have some additional expenses for some poor soils, and we also have a legal issue with some condemnation proceedings. So given those factors, my recommendation is for the sewer fund. However, the council can choose to direct that to any fund they wish.
Excuse me, Kelly, I'm sorry if I missed it, did you say what the original source of this approximately $200,000, where that money originally came from?
Well, we know for sure it's not TIF. It didn't come in from tax increment. At the time we set up these districts, we were doing a number of public improvements, such as the Steiger Lake Land Bridge, improvements to sidewalks and other things like that. We also issued bonds. So it's a combination of those different, when we set up for TIF, we create a project cost, and we submit to the county. We can't go over that. So at the same time we were doing that, we had other expenses coming in, and we had to find revenues for those. And my suspicion is that they were all grouped into one project fund that included both TIF items and non-TIF items.
So if I understand correctly, these are excess funds that were available to make sure that the projects could be completed within budget and weren't needed. They may be a general fund transfer, could be the source, or it could be an actual bond that was taken out to complete the project.
Yeah, most likely it was a general fund or a transfer from another fund could have been one of the utility funds even.
So then using that money as a transfer into the sewer fund would be consistent with how the sewer fund is frequently, how it's funded. Is that correct? By a general fund transfer into the sewer fund?
Well, we typically don't make a transfer into the sewer fund from the general fund. We typically try and operate the sewer fund based on user fees and revenues. But you could argue that with the Wasserman project, the lawsuit for that, it's related to a sewer project, but is it really a sewer fund expense? Because the development there is benefiting many other funds in the city. It's benefiting the general fund, the water fund.
While that's our practice, we're not precluded, though, from making a transfer, are we?
No, there's no legal restriction to transfer into or out of an enterprise fund.
And again, we tend to treat those as standalone utilities, and with good reason, that we want to fund it appropriately and not out of general fund transfers.
Correct.
So in the event that the legal action doesn't require this extra funding, what would your recommendation be then for a use for this money at that time?
Or would you still make the
I
same?
would still make that recommendation. In looking at our cash flow projections for the sewer fund, we're projecting it's going to remain low even with the possible rate increase until probably 2020. We're not going to be at a negative fund balance, but we will be below what we'd like to see for a minimum reserve.
Thank you.
Kelly, just to remind us, we're going to be looking at the sewer, water, and stormwater funds.
Next month, we'll have a budget workshop.
Okay.
Then continuing on with TIF District 3, this one, there was a bond issued. So in talking with Mr. Voss, he felt that the transfer amount out of $159,007 should go into a debt service fund, given that the extra money that's in that fund was related to a bond issue. So in looking at the different bond funds we have probably about 6 or 7 of them. Fund 308, I'm recommending $34,007. And Fund 520, I'm recommending $125,000. Ultimately, what that means is down the road, and if you look at the different spreadsheets, these would be the ones that have the pink highlighting. For Fund 308, we'd be able to reduce our levy by roughly $25,000. And then for Fund 520, we would be able to reduce our levy by approximately $120,000 in 2022. And then the final recommended transfer is for TIF District 4, and this one is to transfer money back into TIF District 1. And this relates to the Rose Street parking lot improvements and the Steiger Lake Lane improvements. A transfer was made from TIF 1 to TIF 4 for project costs. We ended up not needing that additional money, so this is simply to transfer the money back into TIF District 1 where it originated. And TIF District 1 is going to be decertified next year, and what we'll do with the money that is left in there, which will be over $100,000, we'll apply that to probably TIF District 3 to help pay off the bonds issued for TIF District 3. I also reviewed all of these transactions with our city's TIF consultant, Shannon Sweeney. He agreed with the recommendations, and then I will continue to work with him on any possible uses for TIF District 3. The city is looking to create TIF District 5 for the parcels on Victoria Drive between the post office and the Noterman building. And there is a possibility that when we create that district, we can transfer some of the excess money we may have in TIF District 3 into that TIF district. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Can you speak to what the bonds that were issued in TIF districts, what those bonds paid for specifically?
It's largely the Steiger Lake Bridge was, I believe, TIF District 3, and Kara was here at the time, so she might have a better idea to, what exactly the dollar amounts were, but some of the downtown improvements with sidewalks, yeah.
Basically infrastructure?
So we assessed a lot of the project costs for the downtown street improvements, but what I refer to as the bells and whistles came out of the TIF funds, were funded by TIF. So the street trees, the street lights downtown, all the pavers, the paver crosswalks. We didn't assess the businesses for those. We used TIF funds to pay for that and to pay for the city's share of the assessment costs that weren't. It was like a 75% assessment, so we picked up 25% and used the TIF funds to pay for that.
And then, thank you, and then as far as the debt service on those bonds today, what's the source of revenue that's making that debt service payment today?
For TIF District 3, we have a couple of sources. We have tax increment revenue that's coming in, and then we also have the special assessments that Kara mentioned.
So if I, again, summarize here, the businesses and the property owners who benefited from this are actually paying the debt service on the debt for city streets and sidewalks and crosswalks and pavers and all of the things that everybody is using. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Joe, anything? Just for the record, there's one TIF bond outstanding?
Yes, in TIF District 3 has a bond outstanding, and TIF District 2 has an interfund loan with the Capital Facilities Fund.
The bond outstanding is, do you recall the amount?
I'll look it up quickly.
Also, for the record, this change in accounting procedures required by the state auditor happened in 2010 before you assumed this position, correct?
That's correct.
Can I assume then, while you're looking that up, that all creation of all of these TIF districts preceded 2010 as well?
Yes, they all did.
When's the last time we created a TIF district? Do you know?
It would be the Fresh Seasons one, and that was certified in 2008, I believe.
Okay. I guess kind of a follow-on or just thinking forward, the TIF district number 5 that is planned for essentially this site here, will that require any public investment?
Not beyond what we've budgeted. I believe we have about $400,000 in costs, and that includes purchasing the Johnson House, relocating electric lines, demolishing this building, putting up a parking lot here, and all of those costs will be reimbursed from proceeds from TIF District 5 over a number of years.
Okay, and that proceeds are paid by the new property owners. Is that correct? When they pay the taxes?
Yes, the TIF will come from the new building, the Main Street building that's going up. We'll capture the tax increment from that. That'll come back to the city to repay ourselves for the project costs.
Excellent, thank you.
Well, if that's not at your fingertips, you can get it for me later.
Yeah, unfortunately, that bond was refunded with 2 other bonds, so the amount I see here is 3 bonds lumped together.
No, don't
I
bother.
suspect it's about $500,000 remaining. but
Oh,
I
okay.
can double check that for you.
So it's not 6 figure, it's not in the
No,
millions? Okay,
that's our lowest
that's fine. Any other questions for Kelly?
None for me.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 14-76, a resolution approving transfer to reconcile city financial statements to TIF reports.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We've passed Resolution 1476. Item C, the designation of building as structurally substandard within Development District Number 1.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, as part of the city's land swap, for the new City Hall site, the city determined it would create TIF District 5 to reimburse itself for certain costs incurred for the redevelopment of certain properties along Victoria Drive, including land acquisition, demolition of the Johnson home, and the site preparation costs, much what Kelly just indicated. And the council approved a resolution on November 18th of 2013 authorizing an interfund loan to pay those costs in advance of creating this district. So in reviewing the steps for creating the district, the staff determined that the council did not adopt a resolution finding that the Johnson House was structurally substandard prior to demolition of the property. So our bond counsel on TIF, Jenny Bolton, has asked to have this matter before you and to remedy the situation. We have a resolution that would basically designate the building that was there as structurally substandard within the development district.
We should have had a resolution, we didn't, we are
In
now...
November 13th. It's a procedural remedy that we're asking you to pass.
Questions, comments?
Yeah, I'm troubled by the fact of the oversight, and I understand neither of you gentlemen are the ones sitting in the chairs at the time that this should have happened. But can you comment on how that could have happened and what process or what we'll do differently to avoid these kinds of things in the future? And then kind of maybe a Kara question is, what is required to find a building structurally substandard?
First on I'll take the second question first. The building official indicated when you determine that a property is perhaps blighted, which we believed, or the city believed at the time was, they had the building official, Tom Gray, look at it, and he did a report. It's in your packet. So he determined that the building was substandard, blighted, and qualified for being within creating a TIF district. Regarding how the resolution slipped through the cracks, I don't know other than it just didn't meet the procedural requirement. Maybe Bob has more on that.
I can comment. Yeah, Mayor and council member, I kind of anticipated that question might come up, and so I talked to Jenny Bolton, the aforementioned TIF counsel that you've got in my firm. And what she confirmed was you've got recitals in front of you, you've got a resolution in front of you. It's actually a resolution that was produced based on a prior resolution that she had prepared. And you see in recital 1.02 that it says the city's legal counsel, my office, prepared a resolution that would have done what you're being asked to do tonight back in November of 2013. She confirmed that as true. We did prepare that and provide it to the city staff. 1.04 then says due to a processing error, and council member, you're asking the question, what is the processing error? Due to a processing error, this didn't get adopted, and here is what she explained. She explained that we had known that this resolution was required. We prepared the resolution, gave it to staff, but at that November 18 meeting, it didn't get adopted because you will see in your packet, or in your online packet, that the substandard building determination form prepared by the building official didn't actually get done, didn't get actually turned into the city until after that meeting date, until November 22. And so as a result of that, it got pulled from that council agenda and it didn't get put back on a subsequent later December agenda. And so that is factually what happened. sort of where to point the finger, I guess I don't know, council member, that's my role. What I know is that we prepared the resolution that got pulled and didn't get adopted.
Yeah, and it's not so much about finger pointing it as is preventing a future recurrence and making sure we're always doing these things properly.
Yep. The other thing that Jenny added, and I appreciate that point, the other thing she added was that there are other recitals here that correctly point out that you have adopted other documents, a agreement and an interfund loan resolution, both of which call out the Johnson property as substandard. So you have in effect adopted several documents identifying that property as substandard. Her view is, and I think it's the view of the state auditor, is that you need to make that finding in a separate resolution. So it's really a technical point, but that is the point of the resolution in front of you tonight, is to separately call out that property as substandard. The statute noted here in the first recital allows you to make that conclusion after the fact, which is what you're doing. Let's be clear about that. You're making that conclusion after the fact, but the statute specifically allows you to do that. So there's nothing legally suspect about this at all, but there is the timing issue that you're raising, and we do want to avoid that in the future.
With that said, I will make a motion to approve resolution number 14-77, designating a building as structurally substandard within Development District Number 1.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We've approved Resolution 1477.
Thank you.
Welcome, Ben. Next item is the public hearing on an ordinance amending Section 30-240, the Shoreland Zoning District.
Well, Mayor, members of the City Council, the item before you tonight is a proposed code amendment to address what is likely really another long-standing oversight in code, and this one recently came to our attention because of the proposed Hawks Point development in the LMR district near Lake Minnetonka. The problem is that your current shoreland district codes contain really what appears to be an unreasonable lot size standard for non-riparian sewered lots adjacent to general development lakes. And we believe this was a mistake for a number of reasons. First of all, when you look at shoreland district codes really throughout the state, there's a hierarchy of protection. And when you look at Minnesota rules, which establishes the bare minimum that cities need to adopt in shoreland districts, you'll see that the DNR has created 3 different lake classifications. The first of which is natural environment lakes. And these are the lakes that are generally smaller or very sensitive to surrounding development. And because of that, the DNR requires that we have the most stringent development restrictions around those. And the minimum standard that must be set is 20,000 square feet. The second level of lake is recreational development lakes. These are your medium-sized lakes. You'll generally have between 3 and 25 dwellings per mile of shoreline. And there, the lot size goes down to 15,000 square feet at a minimum. And then the third classification of lake is general development lake. These are your largest lakes within the state. They're the most developed around them, much like Lake Minnetonka. And according to the DNR, these have the least levels of restriction around them. And the minimum standard that you must adopt as a city is 10,000 square feet. And when we compare these state mandated minimums to our current code, we'll see that the natural environment lakes, we are spot on. We're meeting at least the bare minimum for the most environmentally sensitive lakes with the 20,000 square foot standard. For recreational development lakes, we also have a 20,000 square foot standard, so that's a little bit more than the bare minimum, 25% increase. But maybe this city looked at our recreational development lakes and said, you know, we really need to protect those as much as we're protecting the most important lakes within the city. But the reason why we think there's an issue here is when we get to the general development lakes, which are the lakes that should have the least amount of restriction. You can see we actually have the most amount of restriction around those. We're 4 times the minimum that's required by the DNR and more than twice the standard that's required around our most sensitive lakes within the city. The second reason that we believe that the non-riparian shoreline standard was an oversight is that the LMR district, when you look at that, is written specifically for properties around Lake Minnetonka. That one requires 40,000 square foot lots calculated on a gross density basis. But the minimum lot size in that district is 1/2 acre. And I don't think it's beyond the pale to think that whoever put this ordinance together back in the day, given that Lake Minnetonka is our only general development lake within the city, simply looked at the LMR district, carried the minimum lot size standard over, but didn't carry the gross density basis provision with it. The final reason that we believe that the change we're proposing here tonight is appropriate is the fact that your previous staff's review of Hawks Point, which has brought this to our attention, clearly says that all of those lots meet all of our lot size standards. And if we look up and down Lake Minnetonka, we see that's really how land has developed, going down to that 1/2 acre standard. So that does suggest that the LMR standards are really how the code has been interpreted, really for at least the last decade. Looking at the proposed ordinance, there really are only two small changes that are proposed in the language. The first would be to match the minimum lot size standards required in the LMR zoning district. So rather than 40,000 square feet, going down to 21,780 square feet. The second would be a new footnote underneath all of the lot requirements in the table in your shoreline district. Number one, we replace the asterisk with a sub 1, and we wouldn't change any of those requirements. But we are proposing to add a second footnote that would basically provide the city council with discretion to limit setbacks on both the front and the side when it was necessary to better protect bluffs, wetlands, vegetation, really the sensitive environmental features that you're trying to protect with this ordinance. Importantly, because the shoreline district codes are a section of codes that are overseen by the DNR, we did put these changes in front of them, and they are on board with these proposed changes. However, they do strongly encourage the city to update the remainder of the ordinance for certification. Unless told otherwise, we do plan to proceed with a complete overhaul of the shoreline district codes so we can get you a new revised shoreline district that we can get to the DNR and actually have certified for the coming years. In conclusion, both staff and the Planning Commission are recommending approval of the changes before you tonight, and I would like to turn it over to questions.
Yeah, before we open the public hearing, questions, comments?
I guess a comment, but we'll come back to it later, is that the recommendation should probably also include adding to the Planning Commission's work plans to do this more comprehensive ordinance review.
Do you, to Tom's point, do you know how far, because the Planning Commission was about revising our ordinances, do you know where that, and again, it's maybe an unfair question of you, but do you know where that stands?
It's my understanding that they got through a majority of the city code, but there were 4 kind of main issues that were outstanding. Shoreland district codes were one of them, your plan unit development codes, the stormwater management section of the ordinance, and then the subdivision code, I believe, was the 4th component. And we would like to move forward, at least in the short term, with both the shoreland district code and the plan unit development code.
And I think that's a worthwhile chore. This is at least the second opportunity we've had to correct a problem in a minor problem that could have a significant impact. And this is I think the second instance we've had of that in the last couple of months.
It is, and there's actually a third that we've recently identified with Crane North that was before you maybe about a month or so ago, because that is on Carl Cray Lake and is within 1,000 feet. It is too within a shoreland district. For whatever reason, your current shoreland district codes do not contain a PUD set of provisions that allow us to provide the normal flexibility we would with a plan unit development in that overlay district. And that would be something we would look to rectify in the overall rewrite.
My brief time as liaison to the Planning Commission a couple years ago would suggest that these are pretty intensive efforts to go through the language and get these ordinances brought up to current standards and eliminate ambiguities, et cetera. How do we prioritize? I mean, we've got 4 outstanding ordinances. What's the process to define what's the highest priority, which is the one we need to attack first, and then get that into the Planning Commission work plan for the year?
Yeah, ultimately, I'd say it's your decision as the city council, but I would look at which ones are causing us the most difficulty and which ones might cause us the most problems in the short term.
Probably need a community development director to help us understand that, huh?
And one will be coming on board here soon.
Thank you.
Yeah, hopefully soon. Any other comments, or we'll open the public, can I have a motion then to open up the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We've opened the public hearing. If anybody wishes to address the council on this subject, please step forward. Seeing none, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We've closed the public hearing. Now, before us, we have to there are 2 approvals required, correct?
Correct. We are looking for approval of the ordinance before you tonight, and if you move forward with the ordinance, we did provide you with a summary publication resolution, which will save the city money when we go to public.
Well, I'll make the first motion, adopt ordinance number 386.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We've approved ordinance 386. Somebody else want to make the motion for the resolution?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 14-78, a summary of the ordinance for publication.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
We've approved the resolution 1478.
Mr. Mayor, where is it, do we need any kind of a formal motion to get this onto the Planning Commission's list of things to do or priority?
I don't know that we need it, but it wouldn't hurt.
Well, then I'll make a motion that we direct the Victoria Planning Commission to address the updates to the Shoreland District regulations.
Just the shoreline?
I guess, let me ask,
Because there are 3 others.
I would be your acting city planner, yes. I would recommend the Planning and Development Code as well move forward at this time. I can look to Kara about the stormwater management section where...
It's a simple change.
Okay, so I'm looking for this, or I'm making this statement specifically, or this motion specifically about prioritizing. So I think all of them are required, but in terms of priority to get this reviewed and done, but we can add the, what was the second one, sorry?
The second one was the Plan Unit Development Section Code,
Thank you.
then the Stormwater Management, and then the subdivision.
All right.
How many pages would you estimate those 4 encompass? I mean, this is a huge task, I'm assuming.
The nice thing about the Shoreline District Code, since we have Minnesota rules to guide us in what the minimums need to be, and we have the DNR to help communities along, they have template ordinances that we can begin with, so we're not starting from scratch
Planning and development?
on the Shoreline District codes.
Yeah, I'm asking about the other 3, stormwater,
The other three,
planning, development.
I guess from my personal experience, both in Minnetrista, I've rewritten codes for the city of New Ulm and the city of Monticello. I can bring forward templates to begin with, at least to the Planning Commission for discussional purposes, and we can use that as our base to build off of.
I'll amend my motion then to update the Shoreland District regulations and the planned unit development portion of that, and request that the Planning Commission further prioritize the remaining open ordinances.
Joe?
So 2 questions. You'll come up with the recommendations, and then you'll give them to the Planning Commission, they'll talk about them and say yes or no. And so my question then would be is, how much is this going to cost? Are we better off handing this to the new planning development person when they come in, or, what's the rough estimate for doing this work?
We can get a draft together, let's say in 4 hours. just using the DNR template ordinance, looking through your current code, making sure that we're bringing in any special provisions that we want to maintain within that draft, and then put that in front of the Planning Commission, which will be an extra part of the meeting that I would likely be attending anyway.
Okay, so I guess we feel comfortable that we're within budget by doing this?
At least for your motion was for the first
First
two.
The shoreline district and the plan unit development
And
portion
then
of it.
prioritize the other two.
Yeah.
And the plan unit
correct.
development, to save your costs, again, I would go back into the templates I've created for other communities and put those in front of the Planning Commission for a starting point.
And I'm guessing in fairness, if we didn't use you and your templates, the planning commission would go to someone like you and develop and begin off with planning and templates.
I think that would be a very good first step, yes.
Okay,
Okay?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Now we've got to approve, no, we've done both. We've done both, correct?
That's correct.
Astor Trail, unfinished business, Astor Trail and Astor Circle improvements. Kara?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The Astor Trail project was approved in 2013, so here we are. The wear course, the second lift of asphalt, was put down this summer. The contractor's been working on reseeding areas that needed to be improved, that weren't necessarily growing the way we wanted them to grow, including punch list items and things like that. But in accordance with our project schedule, it's now time to schedule the final assessment hearing. So the final assessment hearing would be conducted on November 10th, 2014. My agenda item lists what the final project costs ended up being. They were very consistent with what was noted by the council at the time the project was approved to award a contract to a contractor. It was 1.3 million, and we're at 1.2 million, 1.28 million, so I guess one could round that up to 1.3 million. But the proposed assessment amounts are $13,900 for the street and storm, and then $7,400 for the sanitary. These are both below what was in the feasibility estimate for the project costs. The sewer is quite a bit below because, as you maybe don't remember, we did revise the sanitary sewer design. When we got to final design, we ended up switching to a pressure sewer system instead of a gravity system because of the cost implications of running a gravity system between the homes and the lake. So with that, I'm just looking for approval to call for the hearing. We'll send notices, both the legal notice that we have to send, but then also a letter in English explaining to the residents what happens and what steps they need to follow, so they're appropriately informed on the process.
The essence of this resolution is it's calling for the public hearing.
Yeah.
Question?
I just want to make sure I clarify here that based on my recollection of the project and the discussions and the neighborhood meetings, nobody's going to be surprised. These numbers are in line and even favorable to what they originally, and they petitioned us to complete this project, correct? And they were, the property owners were all pretty unanimous in their support for this. And so it looks like a win for everyone in terms of costs came in below plan, and everybody will be, so this public hearing won't be contentious in any way. Is that a fair statement?
It's a final assessment hearing. The numbers are consistent with what were presented. Sometimes people come to final assessment hearings to talk about things like how their grass is or isn't growing or things of that nature. I'll be sending an email in addition to a letter, so I'll find out if anybody has any outstanding issues that I haven't yet heard about. There's been some discussion. There's been a number of people who don't like how we reoriented the intersection. So the way Astor Trail connects to 62nd, we changed the configuration slightly to make it safer. Some of the neighbors don't like how we reconfigured it. Some of them weren't happy with how we were planning to reconfigure it even before we reconfigured it. So it's an intersection we're continuing to monitor. We did add a yield sign up there recently. We might hear about that. when I reach out to them. But
What's the nature of the dissatisfaction?
if you were up there before the project, the intersection was kind of like a big giant Y, and nobody really had to stop either the residents on 62nd Street or the residents on Astor Trail. So cars would just sort of speed into the neighborhood and speed out. So we ended up putting more of a choked intersection in as a traffic calming measure, and to try to get a better establishment of whose turn it was to go, whether it was the cars on 82nd Street or 62nd Street or the cars on Astor Circle. I know some of the neighbors like it, some of them don't. It slows them down.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Somebody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 14-79, calling for the hearing on the proposed assessment for the Astor Trail and Astor Circle improvements.
And as a reminder to everyone, that hearing is November 10th at 6:30.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We've approved the hearing. The City Hall Library September payment request. Ed, Kara?
It's a care item.
As we've done every month now, we have been including the pay requests for the 2 building projects as regular agenda items as opposed to consent items where we normally put these sorts of things, to give us an opportunity to update the council on some elements related to the project. So the staff report outlines what we're looking for payment for. It's $302,171.25 for the various contractors working on the project, and then $9,712.85 for our construction manager. But I'd like to focus more on where we are at with the project. First, I will say that, and this applies to both projects, we do remain on budget. So even with the change orders that you've seen coming through, we continue to monitor the budget anytime new information comes along. You approved furniture not too long ago. Earlier on the agenda tonight, under the consent agenda, you approved a change order for Public Works, which actually was for equipment installation purchases. So we needed to, if you remember, there was a lot of pieces of equipment that we needed to buy, like an overhead crane and a fuel island, that we decided to have happen outside of the scope of the contracts that we were awarding. We felt it was appropriate to do that outside of the building shell construction. But we needed to run power to some of those things, and we determined it was more cost effective to have the contractors that were already on site do that work versus bringing yet another 2 contractors into the site. So that work comes out of our equipment fund line item on our budget sheet. So all in all, we're continuing to be $1,600 under budget based on what I know today, but we continue to track that regularly for both buildings. Schedule, on the other hand, is proving to be a bit more complicated. So the Public Works building is on schedule. The City Hall building is starting to track off schedule. So we were originally talking about a move-in date between Christmas and New Year's. That was something that we just sort of picked, thinking, okay, well, why not move between Christmas and New Year's? But with the way things are going right now, it does look like City Hall is running behind schedule on that. All hands are on deck at the architect's office and the contractor's office to do whatever they can to try to get things back on schedule, but I do think there will be a delay. I don't yet know if it's a 2-week delay, a 3-week delay, a 1-month delay. We're probably going to know more in about 2 weeks when we're supposed to get some steel delivered to the site. So right now we're in a holding pattern without having a new date, which is a little challenging for people who are scheduling furniture and the library scheduling their items. But as soon as we have a better handle on what a more precise date is for a move-in, I certainly will get that out to the City Council when we have it. Public Works is right on schedule, so there's nothing happening there.
Back to the schedule for the City Hall Library. Are there any direct costs associated with the delay? Either, I mean, there are obviously a number of cascaded dependencies, vacating this building, demolition, parking lot, et cetera, et cetera? Are there any direct costs associated with that delay?
The only one we've identified so far as a potential cost is, if you remember when we hired Stahl as a construction manager, we hired them for a set period of time. So if we end up needing them on site for longer than what the set period of time was, they would be looking for additional payment for that time outside of their original scope of work. The furniture delivery is another thing we checked on to make sure that that furniture needs to be stored, so we wanted to make sure that we weren't suddenly having to pay a storage cost based on a delay, and we have a window that they will store it for us, and we think we'll still be within that window. Other than that, we haven't identified anything from a cost perspective that would come up as a result of more time.
Thank you. So in 2 weeks at our next meeting, will this picture have clarified?
There's the potential that by the meeting it will have clarified, but I think I'm going to learn more that week, probably at the Thursday construction meeting that'll happen after this meeting. We're waiting for some steel delivery that then impacts the rest of the schedule, so we want to make sure that's on site, and some measurements need to happen related to window glass.
Do you want to comment on the nature of the delay, the reason for the delay?
There's been a number of factors. They're difficult projects. We had some permit delays early on. There's been some challenges with working through some of the details related to the plan set, but, everybody certainly is doing their part to keep everything on task and schedule.
And the interest of the responsible parties is high, and the ability to deliver is also, in your opinion, high?
Yeah, the architect has a staff person on board who is a resident that they assigned to the project now, so he lives in Victoria, so he's able to get to the site on a daily basis to help facilitate getting any sort of questions that come up resolved. So it is handy having somebody with somewhat of a vested interest too as a resident helping out.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
Joe?
Just on timing. The library, has the county, have they ordered all their stuff? Are they actively buying, the things that are going to furnish the library? And when the city actually moves in, is that the day the library is supposed to open, or are they going to be open 6 months after we move in?
They were looking to open on February 9th.
Okay.
Is my understanding based on the interim manager's most recent conversations with them. Staff is holding weekly meetings just amongst ourselves now to make sure we're facilitating all of these different pieces. We've asked the library to attend our next meeting to make sure that we're all on the same page for timing. So certainly if we're delayed, they're probably delayed a little bit too, but they're looking to get open right away. The only other thing I skipped over is what's happening in the building. I had a little blurb in the project update, but of course here it is a couple days later from when I put the agenda together. The things that you're starting to see is you can see the stonework all the way around the building now. That's pretty far along. There's windows installed on most of the building, both floors and the north side of the building. So we're still waiting for that front glass, which isn't going to come in until we have this additional steel delivery. Electrical, rough-in, and mechanical ductwork installations are ongoing, and then glazing is installed on the north wall windows on the second floor. So,
Getting the building wrapped up or closed is kind of key before the snow falls. Right now, given the delays, does that look in jeopardy, or does it still look reasonable? Again, unless it snows tomorrow.
they're not expressing too much concern about that yet, the construction manager and the contractor. But again, if suddenly it's winter next week, I suppose that changes things. They're talking about getting sidewalk poured this week as of last Thursday out in front of the building, getting all that concrete work done before it gets too cold.
I'll make any other questions? Comment? I'll make a motion to approve payment in the amount of $302,171.25 for the contractors and $9,712.85 for Stahl Construction.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Let's pay the contractors and Stahl. You touched on it, Kara. You want to continue with Public Works?
Sure. So the next agenda item is for payment for associated with the Public Works Facility Project. It would be authorization for payment for $201,295.25 for the contractors, and then $10,269.19 for stall construction. As I indicated under the last agenda item, the project does remain within budget, and this one is moving according to schedule. So far, so good. Everything looks like it's moving along. Insulation of the exterior walls is about a third complete. Framing of the office walls and office ceiling mezzanine floors has begun. The skylights are cut in and installed. They're working on the fire sprinkler, and they've started installation of lights. And I'll see if Ann has anything to add to that. I haven't been over there in a little while.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Yeah, the floors were basically completed, polished, and we're working now towards the installation of the fuel island hopefully this week. And they're also looking at starting to do paving for the entry and into and out of the building. So you should be seeing some more trees being moved around. We're going to be filling in the front portion of the building with some additional trees, as well as it'd be the north side of the building line. So it is moving along quite well.
Can I ask a question about the trees?
Sure.
Just if you can just refresh, how many trees were purchased as a part of the overall land acquisition?
About 270.
Okay. And how many of those trees will be used on-site or directly to screen the building from the adjacent neighbors? All of them, or is there are there some other plans?
A majority of them will be moved. There are some trees that, overall the site doesn't, where the location of the screening is occurred, which is basically on three sides. For all the trees to go there's not necessarily enough room for them all to fit. So we will leave some on site in the back of the 10-acre site. But all of the trees are staying on site at this point in time. We've talked about utilizing them for park areas, for other open spaces, and we're also utilizing right now about 15 to 20 max for additional screening to the homes across the street to the west.
So when we had the discussion to relocate the building back to its original site, we discussed and we discussed offering the residential neighbors on the west side of Bavaria Road access to some of those trees for providing additional screening. And has that offer been extended?
Yes, I actually have met with or communicated with all of the property owners and have had a chance to talk with 3 of them to get site specific on where they'd like their trees. And I'm still waiting for 1 property owner. So
they have accepted that, and that's
yes,
well received, I trust.
Yes. So I'm just waiting on 1 property owner.
And hoping to do that this fall, yes.
Right, hoping. And I just met with Hartman last week, and the planting season roughly about the end of October. So we're hoping to get those moved yet this year.
Okay. Thank you.
Joe?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If we were to move the trees off-site to another park, who pays for the install of the trees?
That would be us. The city would have to pay for that movement because the trees are basically ours right now.
Mm-hmm. So
Hartman, as part of the agreement, was to move X number of trees within the site. But again, I don't know if we're going to have all the room for the 270 total. Like I said, some will stay on site.
So we could move 270 trees on that site as long as they stay on the site at the cost that we bought them for.
Per the agreement, yes, the city purchased 270 trees for that site specific.
Okay.
Does that include the 15 to 20 that could be relocated to the west side of Bavaria Road?
Correct. Actually, because we still have so many trees on site, they are going to be moving those trees because it's basically about the same distance as where they'd have to go.
Okay, so
Without
there's
additional.
no additional
No
charge for
additional
that.
compensation.
Okay. So any trees that might be moved into parks, is that something that would be done just to move the trees, or is that because we're replacing trees as needed?
Yeah, we'd replace them as needed, or create, additional buffer areas around, within the park system itself. A lot of them are really fairly large trees too, so that could become a challenge to move them off-site as well.
Thank you.
Joe?
So my question would be, we bought these trees because they're, almost a crop. They're able to be moved and planted. If we let them sit in the ground, they're going to get too big and we won't be able to move them. We'll have to tree spade them or something. So if we're not going to have a use for the trees, I guess, and we're just going to throw them in the back just to let them sit there, to me, it seems like it makes more sense that we take those out and we'd move them around the city so at least we can use them somehow. Because we paid $300 and some a tree. So it seems to me.
I believe it was like 200, and I have to do the math, but it
Yeah.
was I think it was $266 a
Okay.
tree, somewhere in there. Some of them probably are too large at this point to even, to not have a spade to move them. So, and that would be if we moved them to another site throughout the community, we would have to pay for the moving of them.
Okay. I wonder, I know that the Three Rivers Park District has a tree spade. I wonder if we could work out a deal with them that they could
Certainly something
partner
to
with
check
us
into.
somehow.
And I'd
And
be
up
happy to do that.
up to now, have we given away any of the trees to anybody?
No, not to my knowledge.
Okay. If no other questions, somebody want to make a motion to pay the contractor and install?
I'll make a motion to approve Agenda Statement Number 14-192, a statement authorizing payment in the amount of $201,295.25 for the contractors and $10,269.19 for stall construction.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We've paid the contractor install. Next item on the agenda is the city manager hiring and employment contract for Lori Hoganen. About a month ago, it seems, we hired Richard Fersman and his firm to conduct a search for a new city manager. The process that was followed resulted in 40-plus applicants for the position. Richard presented 12 of those 40 to the city council, and we limited them to a short list of 5. Most recently, those 5 individuals were invited into the city on a weekend, on a Friday and a Saturday, the better part of both days, for interviews with the staff individually. I'm sorry, the staff as a group with each of the individuals, a citizens group composed of prominent citizens and willing volunteers, and then the city council. So 3 separate groups interviewed each of the 5 candidates. The good news is there was almost universal support for the hiring of Lori Hoganen, currently an assistant city manager at the city of Chanhassen, our neighbor. Before us tonight is a contract which Lori has signed, which would have her start on November 10th and become the permanent, hopefully permanent, at least the full-time city manager. We need to approve Resolution 1480 to make that happen.
I move Resolution 1480, a resolution to approve city manager hiring for the city of Victoria, Lori Hoganen.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We've hired Lori. Let me just, before we get off this topic, thank Ed Schukel, who came on board in the early part of July and has done a wonderful job. He has more than 10 fingers stuck in the dike keeping us afloat and dealing with the myriad of issues that cross a city manager's desk on a daily basis, from the complex to the sublime to the almost, well, I shouldn't say ridiculous, because if it's of interest to a resident, it's of interest to us. But Ed, you deserve our thanks and gratitude for a job really, really well done. And on behalf of the council, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, one more, at least one, I guess just one more. A resolution in support of Enki Brewing.
Well, I mentioned earlier in the introduction to the agenda item that the Enki Brewing Company is planning to expand, and they are applying for a grant through the Minnesota Department of Agriculture. Enki Brewing is located in the former Creamery building in downtown Victoria, which opened in 2013. And since their opening, their beer sales are approaching production capacity. If they receive this grant, it would assist Enki in expanding their business by adding the necessary pieces of equipment to triple production capacity. In addition to increasing the sales, the benefits of expansion also include job creation, as they will add up to 4 employees in the next 2 years, increase sales of Minnesota agricultural products by utilizing Minnesota hops and grains as available, and it diversifies markets and increases market access. The application is attached with the resolution, and we would like the council to consider approving the resolution supporting the application.
Anybody have any questions or comments?
Thank you, Mr.
Joe?
Mayor. Is the building going to be expanded at all? And by us approving this, are we somehow approving, something in the future that still has to go through planning and all of those avenues, or is this kind of within the building envelope that we don't have to worry about any of the planning and zoning stuff?
Councilmember Pavelko, I believe it's contained within the existing property, and I don't believe they're planning to add on to the building.
What exactly is the city's role in this?
The city's role in approving or in supporting?
Well, I mean, this is a resolution to support their grant application.
Correct.
What is our role in that, or what does that obligate the city to?
It doesn't obligate the city financially or otherwise. It just shows that the city is supportive of its local business community, and that you're giving them that support and wanting them to expand and be successful.
One of the I guess both the applicants are here. John, you want to, please? Maybe you could fill us in on what your plans are.
I'll explain everything. Thank you, Mayor and council members. So we were
Just for the record, your name is?
John Hayes, and I'm one of the owners of Enki Brewing.
Thank you, John.
And we were invited by the Agriculture Department to apply for this grant. It will pay for up to 25% of the cost of this expansion. We're not talking about changing the physical building outside of the current parameter, the perimeter of the building. We're talking about doing things within the existing building that will enable us to make more efficient use of the space in that building. I had talked with Jennifer Kreft about perhaps getting a letter from Mayor O'Connor or the city council members in support of this project. It is highly influential with the Ag Department to have letters of support. And I thought maybe if the community was supportive of our intentions, you could express that with the Ag Department. And Jennifer explained to me that, well, that might require a resolution if you were to express that support. And so I appreciate you considering this on such short notice.
And the nature of the work, the exterior of the building, no plan changes?
We have ideas for the exterior of the building, but that's not a part of this project. This project is merely to increase our capacity to produce beer increase our capacity to store it in cold storage, refrigeration space, and improve our quality control measures as well as our distribution of beer with refrigerated equipment.
Well, this is one of the easier ones.
What are we waiting for?
Well, I would like to make the motion, but I would like to amend it then also to include the penning of a letter of support to the application for the grant. So I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 14-81 in support of Enki Brewing Company's grant application to the Minnesota Department of Agriculture and to the creation of a letter
Transmitting that
transmitting
resolution?
its city council support to the DNR.
Thank you.
Or Department of Agriculture, excuse me.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? John, your guys have been a wonderful addition to the city, and it's a pleasure on behalf of all of us to do whatever we can to support your continued prosperity. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And I'll craft a letter that transmits this to the appropriate people.
Thank you.
Is there a timeline that we need it by for the application?
There is a deadline at 4 p.m. October 20th in their office. Otherwise, it doesn't get considered. Yeah.
1 week from today.
Can do.
Take a vote.
Did we have to?
I think we have to vote still.
We have to vote still. Is there a second?
Second.
There is a second. All in favor?
Aye.
We've approved Resolution 1481. Reports of the city manager?
Just want to comment that with the hiring of Lori Hokanen, she and I have been having weekly meetings about the city and kind of getting her acclimated to her transition into being city manager. She begins her work here on November 10th.
Thank you, Ed.
Are you going to be on while she's here for a while, or how is that?
We're going to talk about that. The contract you signed was for up to 6 months?
Correct.
It would be 6 months, would be completed as
January.
of the end of this year?
Okay. January 15th of next year.
Middle of January. And I'm going to make a well, we should wait with the whole council's here.
Yeah, I think at our last, the selection meeting, we, I think, deferred action on the transition plan due to Councilmember Pavelko's absence. So I guess I'd ask that we defer it yet again until we have the full council present.
Yeah, and for the record, my recommendation is going to be that we can retain you as a transition component at least to the end of the, not at least, to the end of your contract term, in fairness to you, and in as support for Lori, and with you, the two of you working out the business arrangement as to how you support her.
Sure.
And we should wait till the other council members are here. Any other report?
None.
Joe?
Can I ask for an update on Fresh Seasons, or anything that we can talk about? Are we closer?
If we are, I don't know it.
Okay.
Did any of you hear, the usual rumors are afoot, and believe me, the interim city manager and myself have run to ground even some bizarre suggestions, and there's a discussion as to what's the appropriate use if it's not a grocery store, and the financing arrangements and the TIF implications of all that. But we want to be careful we're staying current with the issue and not getting too far ahead of ourselves. Mm-hmm. At the last meeting, it was reported, I don't know if it was Ed, you or me, or some combination, we talked about a date of as early as November 1st. That's caused the owner some consternation. He doesn't remember being specific about that date. I know he's working, I know he's focused on reopening a store, a grocery store, as soon as possible. There's some impediments to that, and you can have, in order for that to happen, there probably has to be a willing buyer. And as of yet, such has not been found, as far as I know.
I did hear a rumor just that. On Sunday night, last night, that the city was looking at making significant investments, contributions, support financially to reopening that. And so I guess I want to just say for the record, I don't know where these rumors come from, but my response was that we have no stake in it. It's a private business. We have no money to give, nor any intent to do it. So I know.
How do you really feel?
And further, that the tax, the TIF money that was owed to Mr. Wortman personally was used to pay the taxes on the property, and that was the property owner's funding, not city money.
Yeah, I wouldn't presume to speak for the council on this topic, but I for one, and I'm assuming, Joe, you would feel the same way, that there's not another dime going into that private business, that it's up to him to make a go of it. We showed moral support, we showed kind of feet on the ground, contacting all of the potential operators that we could think of, encouraged and actually enticed some to come and tour our city. But as of yet, nobody has been able to step up with a deal that's acceptable to the current owner.
Yeah, I guess to echo that point, my view is our role is as ambassadors of the city to present the value of doing business in Victoria in its very best light, and to support to the business owner verbally, but it's kind of where the line is drawn.
Any other council members? Let me just, one other point, I invite viewers to go to the website, and you'll see posted there is the tape of the most recent League of Women Voters candidate forum. See the two current incumbents and the two applicants for the position, the four of them discussing the issues, and it's worth people investing a few minutes of their time to get fully versed in the qualifications and the preferences of the four candidates. Check our website. I look at this side, nobody's here. You guys, anything else?
No report.
Bob?
Mayor, I have nothing, thank you.
Take a motion to close.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
We are adjourned.